At this point, I'm sure you've all seen these headlines. The state of Louisiana has passed a law that will force public school classrooms to put up a copy of the Ten Commandments on the wall. And the bill that was signed into law literally has the wording that they must use. It has rules about how large the display has to be. And here's the thing. I made a whole video about this like a couple of weeks ago when this was going to happen. So I'm not going to regurgitate every single element of it. I'll try to leave a link below if you want to watch that video because I went into the details about the bill. But the end result is Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana, Republican, obviously, has signed this into law this week. And so now it's a question of, well, what's actually going to happen now? Because the law in Louisiana says public school classrooms do have to put up a copy of the King James version of the Ten Commandments. Technically, it's 11 because no one knows how to count because none of them have read a second book in their lives. But okay, the thing I want to talk about, though, is not just that they put it up, because that's disturbing, but I already covered that. It's the way they are defending this bill in the days since the law has passed. Because I actually find it surprising that all the Republicans who signed the bill, supported this bill, fought for this bill, you would think they would have like gotten into a huddle somewhere and said, they would have had the talking points ready to go. Because think about what questions everyone's going to ask about this. Like the Ten Commandments, Republicans. Well, Donald Trump has violated all of them. Does that matter to any of you? You should have a response to that, right? Because that seems like an obvious question. Why do kids need to be told the first four commandments, which have nothing to do with moral teachings? It's like, don't have any other gods before me. Who the hell cares? Why does a kindergartner need to read that? They should have an answer for that. And obviously, isn't this religious indoctrination in the classroom, right? That's the obvious question. And the answer I would think they would go with is, well, it's not about religious indoctrination. We just want to teach kids about the tradition of the United States and then offer some made up David Barton bullshit about how the Ten Commandments were like all the founding fathers were looking at the Ten Commandments when they wrote the Constitution. And none of that is true, but I imagine they make up a story like that to justify it. But apparently, no, they did not get together. They did not come up with the story because all the things they are saying in interviews is all insane. And I kind of get why, because there is no secular defense of the Ten Commandments law now. And by the way, I'm sure you've also seen this. There is a lawsuit that is in the works, like Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the ACLU, the national group, the ACLU of Louisiana. They are all getting together. They said, hey, just to let you all know, we are going to file a lawsuit. We're just putting the final periods into the complaint because I think even they know this is totally going to get up to the Supreme Court. So we got to get this right. So they haven't filed it yet, but they said they will. But that's going to happen too. But it's interesting because the Ten Commandments, obviously, it's a religious list that includes only religious items on it. Like everyone wants to say, like, what's wrong with having thou shalt not kill on the wall? Are you against that? But again, a lot of the things on the Ten Commandments are hyper specific and religious in nature. So the Ten Commandments, like, are a religious list. Non-Christians do not subscribe to a lot of those commandments. Like maybe we can all agree, yeah, thou shalt not kill. But guess what? A lot of non-Christians do not agree with some of the other things, like keep Sabbath day holy, don't worship false idol, all that stuff. Like, guess what? Those are not rules in other traditions necessarily. And by the way, plenty of Christians do not subscribe to the very specific KJV version of the Ten Commandments that this law says schools have to put up, including, by the way, Catholics. And in Louisiana, Catholics are like a quarter of the population. So like even Catholics don't subscribe to this brand of the Ten Commandments. So what are we doing here? Like, again, why did they do this? The whole point of the bill was for Christian nationalists to kind of flex their legislative muscles, show everyone in Louisiana who's really in charge there. It's not Jews, it's not Muslims, it's not atheists. And why are they doing it? Because in Louisiana, Republicans do not care about improving schools, public schools, or improving kids' lives, making kids more educated. They don't care about that stuff. They want to be sued over this so that when they lose in the lower courts, and they will, they can appeal to an appellate court and they will lose then. And it's going to get up to the Supreme Court. And that's where they want this to go, because they're thinking, if our buddy Clarence and Sam get to see this bill, they're totally going to be on our side. And the one thing, even if you don't follow all the legal stuff, you should know this. In 1980, there was a case decided. It's called Stone v. Graham. This is the only one you got to know. And it's Wikipedia, but it's a nice summary. Stone v. Graham, what this law that they were suing about was a Kentucky law that said, let's put up the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms. It was the exact same thing. It required a posting of the 10 Commandments on the wall of each public classroom in the state. And the court ruled that because they were being placed in public classrooms, they were in violation of the First Amendment. And so that was in 1980. And so, obviously, that's why everyone's saying, well, then this Louisiana bill is clearly illegal, not just on principle, but like literally, we went to the Supreme Court about this in 1980. They said it was illegal. And Louisiana Republicans are like, yeah, but our buddies were not on the court then, and this court loves us. So that's the game here. This is the long-term game they are playing in Louisiana. The Republicans in Texas tried to do this, and they ran out of time. I think the Texas State House did not pass that bill. They didn't get around to it, whether for strategic reasons or otherwise. But even Texas Republicans are like, damn it, Louisiana beat us. I think Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, was like, we're totally going to do this next time around. Good for you, Louisiana, but we're going to be next. So this is what they're trying to do. And I do also want to show you this, and I know I covered this last time. This is the version of the 10 Commandments that will be on classroom walls. This is the bill that Jeff Landry signed in Louisiana. Like, it is a very specific wording. It's not just a paraphrase of the 10 Commandments. It is a very specific wording. Look at that top line there. I am the Lord, all caps. Don't you dare put Lord in lowercase, you heathens. And if you count all these out, there are more than 10. They don't know how to count. These are Louisiana Republicans. Gotta love the last one. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his cattle, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Got that, Robert Morris? So this is what they passed in Louisiana. I want to point you to just a few of the ways the defenders of this bill have talked about. I'm going to play a lot of video clips here. We're going to see how this goes because I've never done it this way before. But first, let me show you this. The lady who was the primary sponsor of the bill, her name is Dodie Horton. This is what she told Politico, or she just said a long time ago when she introduced this bill. They said, I mean, it's kind of pro-Christian, isn't it? She said, I'm not concerned with an atheist. I'm not concerned with a Muslim, she said, when asked about teachers who might not subscribe to the 10 Commandments. I'm concerned with our children looking and seeing what God's law is, which is a weird way of saying Christianity matters, that we live in a theocracy. This is the game. So like even she wasn't trying to come up with a secular argument. She just said, I don't care about atheists or Muslims or Jews. All that matters is Jesus. And it's my version of Jesus, not like what Catholics believe or anything like that. So like she was bad at defending her own bill. And I want to show you this too. Jeff Landry, the governor, when he signed this bill, he also talked not about the secular tradition or history, which would be bullshit, but like that's what I expected he would say. He brought up religion too. And I'm going to play you this clip, and I just want you to make note of whoops. Let me try this one more time here. I'm going to try to do this in the corner Daily Show style. Pay special attention to the little girl standing from our perspective to his right. All right? But listen to the language Jeff Landry is using here.
The display of the 10 Commandments in every classroom in public, elementary, secondary, and post-education schools in the state of Louisiana.
And he'll get to the justification now.
Because if you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses. All right. That's right. He got his commandments from God. All right.
He's doing this in the name of child safety as a girl faints behind him and he doesn't care. Like, oh my God. What sort of story is that? But if you heard she's okay, by the way. The story he was telling there is you can't, if you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses. First of all, no, because people who don't subscribe to the Moses story can respect the rule of law. And you know who doesn't respect the rule of law? The Republican Party's leader. He's a convicted felon. He's a sex predator himself. We just did a whole story about a pastor who supported him who turned out to also be a sex predator. You know what I mean? So this idea that to respect the rule of law, you got to believe in Moses and that story, that's BS. But also, like the original lawgiver, Moses was not the first dude to think of laws. Hammurabi's code. How about that? That was a set of laws that came before Moses came around. Like, what are these people are utterly ignorant. Okay, but that's not even the guy I want to talk about, okay? And I'll give you one more thing. Atheists, I know there's nuance to this. If you look at the federal prison system, atheists are like 4 to 5% of the population, and people who don't subscribe to organized religion are like 30% of the population. But atheists are like 4 to 5% of the population. But in the federal prison system, atheists are 0.1% of the prison system. And I know that's not a perfect example of like morality. Prison is more nuanced than that. But I'm just saying, don't pretend like you need to believe in God to be good. That's ridiculous. Okay. But I want to talk about this one other woman because the lady they keep sending to do interviews about this bill is one of the other co-sponsors of the bill. And her name is Lauren Ventrella. She is a state representative from Louisiana. And for some reason, she's the lady who keeps getting invited, or maybe inviting herself to talk about this. And I think she's like the JV squad leader. Like, she's not your first line of defense you want talking about this bill. But she clearly wants to be Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and like a mix of them. So she goes on TV, does her hair, and then goes on TV and says really dumb things. And I want to play you this clip from CNN. I don't want the video to like go down because I'm doing it, so I'm going to try to show you these little clips about it. But I want to go through so many things she said. So the CNN anchor you're going to see is Boris Sanchez. Yeah, that's the CNN host. And this is Lauren Ventrella. And Boris Sanchez does a nice job of asking her very basic questions about the principle of putting the 10 Commandments in public schools. This is from Friday afternoon. You could even see the timestamp when I show you this video. But here's the first question he's going to ask. What happens if a public school teacher like doesn't want to put up the 10 Commandments? Because it's a law now. They have to. But what if they don't? Let's see this one.
Specify what kind of penalty teachers like that will face?
There's not any penalty under the law. It's just a requirement that the classrooms should post what we know and believe is the moral fabric, the moral fiber of our country.
So there's no penalty, but they have to do it. But if they don't, too bad they do. I don't understand the logic here. Like, I don't know. Should teachers just do like a malicious compliance thing here? I saw this. This is not my idea, but someone posted this online. There's nothing in the rule book that says you can't take a display of the 10 Commandments and put it with the text facing the wall. Technically, the display is in the classroom, and it's the poster they wanted. Nothing says you have to make it face outward. And as I mentioned in the previous video about the 10 Commandments thing, it didn't say the English, it didn't say it has to necessarily be in the English language. It didn't say you can't make certain words stand out from the other ones, like adultery. So she doesn't even know her own bill because there's no penalty in there. Here's the next thing he wants to ask Sanchez from CNN. Like basically, how do you justify this bill? Let me play the clip and we could talk about it after.
About this bill and what's important to remember about this country is that whether we like it or not, Moses is in the Supreme Court of the United States. The Ten Commandments are in the Supreme Court of the United States. Moses is on the law in Congress. This is part and ingrained in our nation. This is a historical document that's important in Louisiana because in Louisiana, we believe in faith, family, and freedom. And that is why I voted in favor of this bill.
Okay, so Moses is in the Supreme Court. Here's what she's referring to here. Let me see if I can make this work. No, go away. I don't want you. Let me try this one more time here. Here we go. This is the frieze on one of the Supreme Court walls because they have a whole bunch of famous lawgivers etched in, like carved into the stone there. And yeah, they include Hammurabi. And yeah, they include Moses. And they include a lot of other, historical figures, fictional figures, whatever. That's what she's referring to. But clearly, in that Supreme Court display, it's not a good analogy because Moses is not singled out. He is one of many lawgivers in that etching. But the Ten Commandments bill in Louisiana says, no, you're putting up the Christian display, and it didn't say you have to put up other displays as well. So it's not a fair analogy. So she's saying, like, well, we're just doing what the Supreme Court did. No, you're not. You're literally lying about it because your bill only included the King James version of the Ten Commandments. Like, the comparison fails. Okay, what about the fact that our Constitution is secular? Does she say anything about that?
Sure, but you also recognize that the Constitution of this country, its founding document, doesn't include the word God or Jesus or Christianity, and that's for a reason, because the founding fathers founded this country as a secular one. You don't see that?
I bet you CNN pays you a lot of money, and I bet you got a bunch of dollar bills.
What does this have to do with the network that I work for or what I'm getting paid? Don't make this about that. Answer the question.
I bet CNN pays you a lot of money. Is her response to, isn't our Constitution secular? Like, what does, let's say hypothetically, CNN paid one of their staff members, which I know, crazy thought. What does that have to do with the answer? He could still ask the question. Guess what? Fox News anchors also get paid. Doesn't matter. So again, she didn't answer the question. She dodged it and asked about something totally different to change the subject because she doesn't know how to answer the question. This is the one that really surprised me because then she knew she sounded smart in her head and she offered a different justification for why the Ten Commandments bill is okay.
This is a very valuable document. Look, this nation has gotten out of hand with crime, with the bad negative things that are going on. Why is it so preposterous that we would want our students to have the option to have some good principles instilled in them? If they don't hear it at home, let them read it in the classroom.
That's not the clip I wanted to play, but just to get to that point, the Ten Commandments isn't a list of good principles. It's a list of religious rules that includes a couple of very generic moral teachings, okay? Like teaching people not to kill. Okay, fine. Put that one up in the classroom. Telling people to keep the Sabbath day holy. Stupid. Pointless. Why are we wasting our time, right? You don't need to do that at all. So that's the problem with that. Let me see if the next clip is the one I wanted to play for you.
To the parents of students or even teachers who don't share your religious views.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it. That's it.
What would you say if your child
sorry about that. I'm going to come back to that in a second. We'll come back to that. That idea that what would you say to the parents about this stuff? Don't look at it. Ignore it. Which is a hell of a thing to say because Republicans refuse to do that when it comes to things they don't like pride flags, library books they don't know how to read, same-sex marriages, healthcare, abortion pills. Like, they have an inability to just not look at it. They inject themselves into everyone else's business all the time. It's the only thing they enjoy doing. But as soon as they shove their religion into everyone else's faces, apparently all the rest of us are just told to look away, right? This is the clip, I think, this is the clip I wanted to show you where she really offered what she thought was a slam dunk argument. Let's see if this one works here.
God we trust. Well, make it about me. I got a dollar bill in my wallet. In God we trust is written on that dollar. It is not forcing anybody to believe one viewpoint. It's merely posting a historical reference on the wall for students to read and interpret it if they choose.
She's got a dollar bill in her wallet somewhere, and it says, "In God we trust." Obviously, I know all of you know this, but clearly she does not. The "In God we trust" was placed on paper money in the 1950s, just like "Under God" was placed in the Pledge of Allegiance in the 1950s. Why? Because people thought, like, we got to fight the godless communists, so let's just inject God into the public sphere any way we can do it. So, like, it's not like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson was like, you know what we need to put on paper money. No, that's not what happened. But even beyond that, to say like, well, we have "In God we trust" on the money, "In God we trust" is generically religious. It's not promoting a specific religion, right? Like, it's also a political slogan. She took a political stunt from the 1950s and acts like that justifies some sort of historical argument for why we're allowed to put the commandments on the walls, which, no, that's not at all the case, okay? Here is a different thing she also said. This, I think, is another one of those, how do you not have an answer to this? Because she didn't. Let me see if this works here.
I do have to point out and ask you about the fact that religious scholars don't even agree who wrote the Ten Commandments, where or when they were written. Does that not give you pause in any way that this comes from a religious document and not from something that's based in secular agreement or in a doctrine that a group of people have come to accept, something like the Constitution?
Look, religious scholars may not agree, but I'm going to tell you right now, Louisiana in both houses agreed, and we passed this legislation.
Right, because Louisiana's legislature is full of Republican Christian nationalists, and the smart people who studied this stuff, their opinions do not matter to the Christian nationalists who passed the bill. Like, she's proving why this is a political stunt because she doesn't care about what smart people have to say about it. Like, she's giving it away. There's one clip I wanted to show you. I don't know if I have
parents of students or even teachers who don't share.
I showed you that one already. Let me see if this is the one I wanted to play.
What should a teacher tell a kindergartner who asks what adultery is?
Well, the teacher should be able to have an appropriate response, which is to tell them, look, guys, this is a historical document that's posted on the wall to remind everyone of good morals, good principles. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not lie. These are important things.
The question was, what do you say to a kindergartner who's like, what's adultery? And she doesn't answer that question because, again, it's okay for Christians to make kindergartners have to question adultery, which implies it's okay to teach a kindergartner about sex. But if you do it in, oh my God, a sex ed class, that's grooming. If you do it through a book where a young child is like exploring their own bodies or something, that's grooming. But a kindergartner looking and saying, teacher, what is adultery? Assuming a kid can read, that's fine. She just changes the subject. Like, it's all well and good in that context. There was one other clip from this I wanted to show you, which is the obvious question of what happens if you put yourself in someone else's shoes.
The parents of students or even teachers who don't share your religious views.
Don't look at it.
Oh, we did do that one. I'm sorry. That's not the one I wanted to play. Let me, I'll come back to that one later if I can find it. But you get the idea here. She's out of her depth. She doesn't know how to answer any of these questions. And kudos to Boris Sanchez of CNN for asking, not, I wouldn't say like hard hitting questions, because none of those were that surprising, but asking very basic, very straightforward questions and keeping his cool when she didn't answer any of them. But like, this is what happens when you put an ignorant buffoon on TV who doesn't understand the very bill she helped sponsor. Like, it was humiliating. But the problem with humiliation is that the people who are the least aware of what is happening, who are the least up to the up to the task of explaining themselves, they're also the people who feel so confident that they're right about all this. So she agreed to do another interview that night, also on CNN, but this time with a different anchor. Okay. This time this is with the host Abby Phillip. And again, it became apparent that even though she had several hours between the two interviews, she did no further research on the matter, because Abby Phillip asked a lot of the same questions and we got none of the answers. No better answer from her. Let me play one clip from here first, and then we'll talk about it.
Trust is on the dollar bill. If I had one right now, I'd show you. In God we trust. There are certain things that resonate with this country, certain things that resonate with this state.
Though In God We Trust was put on the dollar bill in the 50s, the 1950s, not the 1850s or the 1750s, the 1950s. So it's not an original, document of the United States government. That's not a great argument.
Well, it's still on our dollar bill, no matter how you want to look at it. It's still there every day.
Like, I have to wonder, has she used that argument in front of Christian audiences and they all applauded her, so she never knew it was a dumb argument? And now she's using it with someone who actually knows the basics of how In God We Trust got on the dollar bill. And Ventrella is just totally lost altogether. Unbelievable. There was one other thing she said, which again, well, how would you put yourself in someone else's shoes? Let's see how she answers that one.
Your son or daughter had a Jewish or a Muslim teacher who chose to hang one of their own religious texts on a poster in their classroom right next to the Ten Commandments. Would you have a problem with that?
Basic question.
Hey, thanks for having me tonight. It's a great night in Louisiana because I know tomorrow morning the Ten Commandments are going to be proudly displayed in the classroom. Look, this bill is not about a Muslim text or any other text. This bill is simply about the Ten Commandments.
Notice she did not answer the question. She's just like, ha, 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 this bill is about my God, so shut up. But also, notice what she said. Tomorrow morning, the Ten Commandments are going to be proudly displayed in classrooms. She hasn't read the bill she sponsored. The bill says teachers don't have to put up these posters until January 1st, 2025. That's in the bill. So, no, tomorrow nothing will happen. Also, it's summer. There's no school tomorrow. So what's going to... Again, when you stick to talking points and you don't have the ability to think through any of it, what the hell is she doing? Nothing. School's not in session, honey. Nothing's going to happen. They did, to her credit, Abby Phillip, the CNN anchor, pressed her on that question again and again, just saying like, well, what if a Muslim teacher wants to put up the 5 pillars of Islam, something like that? And Ventrella just kept talking about like, well, you're asking me a hypothetical, but the bill I passed is about my God. And then she added she is knowledgeable and educated about her bill, which clearly she is not. So anyway, just a whole bunch of... I'm amazed how unable she is to answer basic questions about her own bill. And it all reminded me of one other clip that I really wanted to show you, which I don't know how many of you remember this, but this is what came to mind, especially when she was told, like, that's not a great argument about In God We Trust on the dollar bill. And this is just a fun callback. In like 2017, you may recall, Roy Moore was running for Senate from Alabama. He was the Chief Justice for a long time of the Alabama Supreme Court. He was like the right-wing evangelical Christian hero, and he was running in Alabama. There's no way he could lose until it came out that, guess what? Moral of today's show, this Christian turned out to be a child sex predator. And at one point, before we knew all of that stuff, before it came out, Roy Moore's spokesperson, his name was Ted Crockett, he came on CNN, and Roy Moore had said something about how Muslims could not be in Congress. Or maybe it was Ted Crockett. Ted Crockett said Muslims could not be in Congress because you have to swear an oath on the Bible. And Jake Tapper asked him about that because obviously, no, you don't have to swear an oath on the Bible. That may be tradition, but there's no rule that says you have to. And as we've seen in recent years, plenty of people who get elected take oaths on books that are just meaningful to them. But I just want you to look at, if you haven't seen this clip before, because the look on that man's face when he was confronted with that bit of information was glorious. And if you haven't
Moore
seen
has
it, it's
also
great.
said that he doesn't think a Muslim member of Congress should be allowed to be in Congress. Why? Under what provision of the Constitution?
Because you have to swear on the Bible. When you are before, I had to do it. I'm an elected official, 3 terms. I had to swear on a Bible. You have to swear on a Bible to be an elected official in the United States of America. He alleges that a Muslim cannot do that ethically, swearing on the Bible.
You don't actually have to swear on a Christian Bible. You can swear on anything.
Look
really.
at this
I don't
guy's
know if you knew
reaction.
that. You can swear on a Jewish Bible.
Oh, no,
You can
I
swear
swore on the
you can-
Bible. I've
you
done
can-
it 3 times.
I'm sure
Jay.
you have. I'm sure you've picked a Bible, but the law is not that you have to swear on a Christian Bible. That is not the law. You don't know that?
Just
All right, Ted Crockett with
I
the
don't
more,
know. I know
He
that
froze up.
Donald Trump did it when we made him president.
because he's Christian and he picked it. That's what he wanted to. That's what he wanted to swear in on. Ted Crockett with the More campaign. Good luck tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
that guy had no clue what hit him. He just had no argument. He's been saying this forever, and when confronted with the facts, he's just blank stare, deer caught in headlights. Oh, by the way, Lauren Ventrella, the lady who couldn't answer a basic question, I was looking at her bio from her campaign website. Guess what? Guess what her profession is before she got elected? That's not what I want to show you. Let me try that again. Here we go. Look at this. Lauren is a graduate of LSU and received her JD from Southern University, graduating with honors. She's a lawyer. She should know some of this stuff. And I get that, okay, she did like injury law, which is not the same as like the sort of people who are clerking for a Supreme Court. And I'm not trashing that or anything. But this lady went to law school. She should know the First Amendment. That's what you learn on like day 1, hour 1, I assume. But the fact that she's playing dumb, you have to wonder, is she just playing this role because she wants to be like Marjorie Taylor Greene? Or like, she should know better. She should. She doesn't. Anyway, I'll stop there. None of these people know how to answer any of these questions because the bill is dumb. And they will have a lawsuit over this. But the whole goal, again, you can watch this in 3 years when it's in front of the Supreme Court or something, and the ghost of Clarence Thomas overrules it somehow and says it's okay. But the whole game is Louisiana knows they're going to get sued over this. They know it's going to take a while. They want this to get to the Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court can say, yeah, there's secular justification for putting the 10 Commandments on wherever you want to. On a monument outside like the Capitol in your state, that's fine. Why stop that? That's where this is going. Okay, I'll take questions. This lady would rather watch God's Not Dead 2 than read the Constitution. Thank you for that donation. And yeah, like, if she watched it, honestly, maybe she would learn something, which is not saying much because you shouldn't learn anything from God's Not Dead, any of the series. But yeah, like, again, if you're going to be an elected lawmaker, the least you could do is talk to people who understand the law. And she doesn't know it. And she clearly didn't talk to people who knew anything about it, which should be disturbing. Like, God, I'm not in elected office. But if I were, like, and I wanted to propose a bill, you can bet your ass I would be talking to relevant parties to make sure I'm not saying or doing anything dumb and justifying it. Because what she said was not a slip up. It was calculated, and she just doesn't know it. Why not just put the 10 Commandments in your own home? Ah, Sean, you naive person. These people don't care about private prayer. They don't care about praying silently where no one can see them. It only counts when there's an audience. And it only counts when you're forcing your views. I know you know this, I'm joking. But like, it only counts for these evangelicals when you're forcing your views on other people. They don't care about praying in private. I think it was asked today, like, they asked Ben Carson on TV, like, does Donald Trump have the 10 Commandments posted at Mar-a-Lago or anywhere you've ever seen him, in the White House, maybe? If it's that important for people to see every day, has it been in any of these places? And of course, Carson's like, well, no, I haven't seen it in any of them, because no one cares. Republicans don't care. This is a symbolic thing they want to do to try to shove Christianity into the public square. They don't care about the 10 Commandments. And we know that because, like, everyone they elect violates every single one of them. And they vote for them anyway because none of this matters to them. Their own pastors violate these rules every damn day, and none of them give a shit. They do not care about the 10 Commandments. They're just doing this as for the same reason that high school football coach Joe Kennedy wanted to pray at midfield. It's not because he wants to talk to God. It's not because he cares about God. It's because he's an arrogant showboat who wants to do a public display of Christianity for everybody else, not because any of them give a damn about God. None of them care. It's all about public performance. I know you know that. Americans are obsessed with theocracy. Hey, now, not all of us, just certain ones. Certain horrible people are obsessed with theocracy, and they're all going to vote for Donald Trump. Where are the rest of you? I hope the rest of you have a game plan that only involves voting for Biden and then complaining about Biden, like you should. But Jesus, there's only one viable candidate to vote for. So please vote accordingly so we don't get a theocracy or something close to it. That girl had the spirit on her. She got mad. She was fiery, and she knew nothing. And yet she ran for office because she figured she could get elected, and she did. I hate that the smartest people I know are also the people who would never ever run for office. Thanks, Den. Meanwhile, the people who should be in public office are like, well, no, I'm working in a lab somewhere. Like, we need you in public office. No penalty, no law. This is a very interesting thing about this 10 Commandments bill. There is no penalty on the books for what happens if a school doesn't comply, if a teacher doesn't comply. What happens if they put up other posters around the 10 Commandments bill? They could put up arrows that say, ignore this. There's nothing stopping them from being maliciously compliant with the law. I hope all these teachers and sensible school districts take them up on that. And let's have a big lesson. Use it as a dartboard for all I care. It doesn't matter. Like, you can put up the paper to fulfill the obligations of the law. It doesn't mean you have to take this list seriously, because I'll tell you what, the Republicans who voted for this don't care. And by the way, some Democrats voted for it too. Screw them. But again, it's all the people who voted no on this bill, all Democrats. A lot of laws are paper tigers with no enforcement provision. As a lawyer trying to enforce them, it's frustrating. In this case, I'm glad. That is a very fair point. Yeah, if you can't enforce this law and there is no enforcement provision, all the more reason for very, very clever and courageous students and teachers to take this matter into their own hands. Make it a class project. What can we do with this waste paper that we have to put up on our walls because Republicans said so? Like, again, there's so many ways you could be clever about this. I would love on the first day of school, if nothing has changed in August, I want to see pictures of what they are doing to comply with this law that is so not what the Republicans want. Any other questions here? It's intending to have a chilling effect on secular influence on education and culture. It's a flex. Yep. To show non-Christians they have no power in these evangelical communities. I agree. They want to show that Christians run the government, that therefore they run the public schools. None of this helps kids. I mean, that's the bottom line. If these people wanted to help kids, they could, do something about guns in schools. They could make sure kids are getting a strong curriculum that includes, climate change, sex ed, things like that. But no, they're not passing those bills in Louisiana. Louisiana, by the way, I forgot the exact number. They are ranked in like the bottom few percentages in education. They are one of the worst states in the country when it comes to education. No one is moving to Louisiana for like elementary school because they want a great education. You go to school in Louisiana because you have to go to school in Louisiana, or you're this lady who went to law school there. I'm not complaining about the law school, but like, it's not a great state for education. And the people who have the ability to fix that are putting 10 Commandments displays on the wall. They're not doing anything to fix what actually needs to be fixed. Do you believe that some of the southern states are becoming more conservative? Is it possible? I mean, yes, because in red states where they have total dominance of the legislature in places like Arkansas and Florida, right now anyway, yeah, those states are doing whatever they could that is worse than what they've already done. They'll find whatever new culture war battle there is. And then, it's very popular among their circles to just find an outgroup to trash. Like, this year it's been trans people. Before it was gay people. Next time it'll be some other group. They'll always find some group to pick on. And whether it's pushing Christianity or making some group feel excluded, they'll just make life worse for different groups that are not them. That is the hallmark of like Southern state Republicans these days. Thou shalt not kill. So can we talk about how God killed his own son and that was a good thing? No. You see, like, it's okay if it's the good kind of killing. Like, all these Republicans support the death penalty. The lady who sponsored the 10 Commandments bill is a strong advocate for more death penalty. They all love like assault weapons. They're fine with killing. They don't want to stop the killing, but they just don't want you to kill like anything before the age of 0. You're not allowed to do that. After 0, they don't care. And also, they just want it up on the wall. They don't want to live by it. Thank you for the donation. First, they call LGBTQ people groomers, then this, clean your own house before breaking mine. I am right there with you. But this is what they've done for decades now. They pick on groups that are not like them. They are hypocrites within their own house. And none of that ever registers with the people dumb enough to vote for them. The hypocrisy never matters. They'll talk about like moral, like Mike Johnson, the quintessential white evangelical dude, is going to bat for Donald Trump, who has, if Joe Biden had the moral record of Donald Trump, Mike Johnson might have a point with all the religious stuff he says. But because it's Donald Trump and it's his party's leader, he kisses the ring and he just says, yeah, of course, this guy's great. I love this guy. And then he speaks to Christian audiences to talk about the importance of moral values in our country. These people don't care. They don't care about the hypocrisy. They are not fazed by the hypocrisy. None of it phases them.